Hey guys, it's Jessica Fury, host of Dumb Girl Podcast. Tune in every Monday for new episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to Dumb Girl Podcast, where we are back. We have a special guest. Only he's a special guest because he's from New York and he's visiting LA. Daniel Blatman is an agent with the agency. So far this year in Q1, he has closed $33 million. Last year, he closed close to $100 million in sales. Daniel, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. How's your trip been?
It's been great. Like LA is just really calm. I feel like I can actually relax, and it's nice to actually be here and not do that much, other than obviously close some deals.
But you're working.
Yeah.
You've been working the whole time.
Yeah.
Is that because you already have like a system in order, or it's because you just can't stop working? Like what, like?
It's more I can't stop working. But when you think about the lifestyle, like being a real estate agent, everything is moving all the time. So you can't just take yourself out of it and then do nothing. But what's so cool about being in LA versus being in New York is that I can actually sit in one seat, one spot, look at a pool, look over the skyline, and do pretty much nothing other than like research, be on the phone, negotiate deals, and call it a day.
But that's why, and I'm hearing you say that, and it's also connecting me to why people in LA either want to live in places like the Palisades, which is away from all like the hustle and bustle and chaos of like the traffic, and which could be it can bring a lot of anxiety. Mm-hmm. That's where people are like, okay, if you live on one side of town, you have to also be mindful of your commute. And I want to hear about this because I am from New York. And I'm like, how do you do it? And the other thing is like people working from home and having like beach views and like the pool, this amazing, like up in the Hollywood Hills, and you have an infinity pool, and it's just, it's stunning. And you just look over the hillside, whichever hillside it may be, maybe the beach side or maybe the Hollywood sign. But just hearing that it's so relaxing, sometimes it is so stressful in LA because it's like, I live in the Palisades. So for me to get to like Beverly Hills, sometimes I have to give myself between like 30 minutes and an hour. And I know that in New York, when you're in like East Village and you need to go to the Upper West Side, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
No? Yes?
You just know it's going to take you a certain amount of time. So I typically give myself anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes to get anywhere, unless I can walk. So if I can walk or Uber, it's usually 20 minutes. Because walking, you pretty much walk a mile, because we all walk really fast there. I'm going to walk a mile in about 12 minutes. So I know how long it's going to take me to get everywhere. And then if I'm going from the East Village to the Upper West Side, that's probably 45 minutes. I might give myself an hour depending on the time of day. But you know it's going to take you that long. So the great thing is I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to call clients. It makes you sit on the phone and be productive. If I'm in the train, I'm going to sit there on email and text message and respond to people that I haven't responded to because I need to. So traffic, while it sounds like terrible, you know it's going to take you an hour. So then just build in your phone calls during that hour. And you can still negotiate however many deals. You can still make prospecting calls. You can still do everything. Just sit in the car. That's kind of great.
I mean, now how do you plan your showings with clients? Do they only want to live in a specific part of the city? Do you notice that people just want to be in Tribeca? People want to just be in the Upper East Side?
Yeah, very much. So we're less location specific now than how we used to be. And in New York, it's a different thought process in how you're paying for things, because you'll see something and you'll look at it like, why am I paying X amount of money for this building and literally across the street the exact same floor plan, because a 600 square foot or 800 square foot one bed has the same floor plan in one building versus another. Why is one building on one corner of the street trading at X amount, another building across the street, literally across the street, is trading much higher or much lower?
And why is that?
Well, the difference is that in New York City, you are paying for the neighborhood first. Then you pay for the street that you live on. Then you pay for the building. And then you pay for your apartment based off of the size, the condition, and the exposure. So if you understand that that's what you're getting, depending on what your street is and what your neighborhood is, how close are you to restaurants? Can you feel the subway? Is that street something that trucks actually drive past, or does it have any car traffic? Because some streets are traversed, other ones are not. Some streets have trees. You'll see that the buildings that hold their value and tend to sell better because they feel better, the street just feels more relaxing and homey. It's because the street has trees on it. It's so basic, but everybody is so running around that they don't know how to equate an emotional response to something that is physical that they already feel in the building or on the street that was in that entire approach. So we're going to bring attention to that, whether I'm on the buy or the sell side, to teach them about their emotions as to why is this one better and why does this make sense and why is it somewhere that they're actually going to feel like home.
How do you teach someone to have an emotion when, and I know that you've spoken about this before, when New Yorkers, as you would say, don't have an emotional connection to something, whether they're in finance. Most people that work in New York, they're either in tech or they're in finance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you even brought this up, that they don't really have an emotion towards anything. I mean, my immediate thought is like, oh, well, I hope they're in a relationship and they're able to at least have some sort of emotion to their significant other. But now, how do you create an emotion? Because most people buy off emotion. How do you specifically create an emotion towards clients or whomever you're working with?
Well, it's understanding who they are and what is their lifestyle. So if I'm representing a property to sell it, it's understanding who is the buyer for that specific place, what's their identity, and what's unique about it. So in New York, you're paying for the apartment, which is great, but not everything is considered equal. There are people that will say they live in a 1,600 square foot 2-bed. It's a great size apartment, but they will be freaking out for different reasons. And they'll be like, oh my God, we just need more space. We need like 2 or 2,500 square feet. Really, they don't. Humans are pretty lazy. We like to stay in one spot. Like in my apartment, I walk in, I use my foyer, I use my bed, and I use my desk. I have a whole living room. I have a dining room. I rarely sit on the couch except for when I take a nap, because I love taking a nap on my couch. And sometimes you just got to do it. But when you understand what their lifestyle is, and that most arguments between a couple happen, and I'm sure somebody's going to argue with me on this, but most arguments that I'll see happen they happen in the kitchen and they happen in the bathrooms. Those are the high traffic areas. Here, it could easily happen in a stairwell. If your stairwell is only 3 feet wide versus 4, well, 4 foot wide gives you enough space for 2 people to walk back and forth across each other without having to say, excuse me. You might throw the other one against the wall, because that's what I did with my brother, and it was funny. But, you have so much space. So when you realize where the bottlenecks are, that if you're in the kitchen and you're constantly bumping into somebody because the 2 counters are too close together, or in the bathroom, how if you have your sink and the back wall are also too close together, or is the toilet in the front by the door, or is it in the back by the shower? And where is that layout? And where are you always feeling like you're on top of each other? So if you can alleviate those pressure points, then all of a sudden you realize you don't actually need that much space. You're not on top of each other. You can move around without having to like throw some elbows and like want to freak out. Then it just becomes a different concept. So by helping to understand the emotional response that somebody's going to have in each one of those spaces, how is it laid out? And in New York, you can't make the bathroom larger. You can't make the kitchen larger. You're dealing with what you're dealing with. So when you can highlight how somebody will actually live there, that's the win. And there's always different things with noise, with street traffic. What does the lobby look like? What do the hallways look like? There's so much that you can't change that you just have to deal with. New York is like, it's the most amazing city because it's kind of freeing in that you have to you just have to give up something all the time. Anybody that's lived there, we always give something up.
I think that's the same thing for LA. That is the same thing for LA, but here's the thing, and I think about this sometimes when it comes to buying a home. I have like certain specifics. One is how far away am I from street traffic, the noise of the street? How far away am I from heavy like foot traffic? I don't like a lot of foot traffic. I just don't want it to be a street where a lot of cars can pass through it. I just want it to be extremely private, just extremely quiet. And some people, for example, I use the most easiest thing, like some people don't want to be closest to the freeway. Like that's an example. People don't want to be close to like the 405. And then you have people that they want multiple ways to get to the freeway. And that's a selling point. People like, oh, well, I work here and I want there to be 3 or 4 ways that I can get to the 405. And I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm like, oh, it's kind of similar to LA. And to go back what you initially said, that it's so much more relaxing here. When I go back to New York, I have a different type of energy that I feel as if I'm like nonstop working here, I'm like 10 times nonstop working here. And I don't know what it is. I think it's just the feel of the city. I think it's like just this energy. Because in LA, for me, sometimes it's like people just, I think it's sometimes like there's so much anxiety that people just, because they're in their cars all day and it's taking a really long time to get from one place to another, they're almost like driving either under stress or frustration or anger. And, you know, do you even experience that when you're like trying to get to an appointment? And if you are experiencing that, how do you manage it to just be on point?
New York just has a different energy entirely. Like every concept of it is different because one, the Manhattan itself has a moat. It picks who can come in, who leaves, how long people stay there. I always tell people that if you treat New York City like a character in a David Lynch film, it will always act on you. It's like Twin Peaks, where it is just New York City and you and whoever else happens to be in your conversation at that time. The city will find some way to either mess with you or reward you. It's up to however you're feeling. So if you put good things out there and you don't try and sabotage yourself, then the city will reward you. If you're doing something that's not quite right, I think that the city will probably mess you up a little bit. And then it'll set you on the right path or it'll kick you out. Brooklyn feels a little bit more relaxed. Queens, a little bit more relaxed. The concept of it is that people will say that the spirits and any energy that has ever lived and died in Manhattan stays in Manhattan. It doesn't cross the bridges, doesn't go through tunnels, it stays there. So when you get there, the feeling and the energy that you find on the island is completely different than anywhere else. And that's what drives everybody. Like as soon as you wake up, you already feel like you've had 6 shots of espresso and you're ready to go. Whereas you wake up anywhere else, you're like, yeah, this is kind of nice. I feel like I had a Klonopin. I'm just going to hang out. No, you don't feel that?
No. Some days I'm just like, I talk about this a lot of times in episodes. I'm like a big meditator.
Okay.
I love to meditate. It's like my thing. Getting myself grounded in the day, like ice water, coffee, meditation, workout, like I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just an unstoppable force. But I'm a huge practitioner and I highly recommend it for everyone to take time to meditate.
Yep.
Every single day. And but there's some days when I have to like cut my meditation short to make sure I can leave by a certain time, to be on the other side of town, to give myself this 15-minute window for traffic that may just all of a sudden happen while I'm in the midst of doing something, driving there. And that can create anxiety. And it also can create like, I don't know, stress sometimes. And I've learned to just like focus my energy. I'm always listening to something to keep me focused and learning about like the market or whatever it is that I'm doing, just keep my energy on point. But it's not that I don't agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with it because I'm just like, spend 6 months in LA and let's have this conversation in 6 months.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting. Like I would already have some fixes. If you know that, let's say it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you need to be somewhere at 9 o'clock. It's going to take you anywhere between 15 minutes and 30, maybe 45. As a real estate agent, a lot of our time is spent on the phone.
Yeah.
Because we can call, there's always somebody you can call. And if you can't figure out who you're going to call your mom, call your dad, call your brother, even if you don't like them. Like there's always somebody that you could call, that you could prospect, that you could do anything. So if I know it's going to take me 15 minutes, but also like the high stress of me needing to get somewhere is a whole other concept. All right. So I would start my meditation for that exact thing. I would start my meditation at 8:00. It'd be a 10-minute meditation because that's what I would do. I'm done by 8:10, maybe 8:15 because I started a little bit late because that's normal. Then I'm going to grab my stuff because I'm already dressed. And then I'm just going to go get in my car because there's not much more you can do in 10 minutes. Like, I'm not going to write anything. I can send emails when I'm sitting at a stoplight if I need to. And then I would just go get in the car and go to where I'm going because that's what we have to do in New York. It's the same thing.
You know what? Maybe I've been in LA for such a long time that I've sort of like gravitated towards like, yeah, I do like a meditation, then I do this and take the dog out. But I want to ask, I want to go back. It's just like, I don't know. I find having that extra time in the morning to just be, and then I can work till sometimes like 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
I'm just on it. Like sometimes I can do like 10 to 10. Like a work day, 10 to 10, 11 to 10, and I'm just on it.
So you're working a half day.
I mean, I need to sleep, and I'm like a sleeper. But I want to just switch gears for a second because I want to talk about, the return on the investment. And I want to see if there's a difference between the market in Los Angeles and the market in New York. Because in LA is like, if you have a home, let's say $3 million, and you put work in it, or you're a developer and you buy it and you turn it into a remodel and you sell it for 10, 12, 15, 20, $30 million. It's a huge return on the investment.
Yep.
And with New York, and I kind of just want to let you roll with this, is explaining the return on the investment. And most of the homes, and we're only using the city, we're not going outside the 5 boroughs, most of them are buildings, and the building is a specific age. They're not going to tear the whole building down and redo the whole entire building. So can you explain like the return on the investment as a buyer, as an investor? Are there a whole lot of developments going on there right now?
There's always a lot of developments going on. So if I were a developer, that's a different scenario than if I am a individual without a crew, without my own like team that can do the renovation for me, that I know the work that they do, they can manage it. Those are very different humans. So the developers with us are typically private equity firms, or they're developers, but they're basically just a private equity firm. So they've raised money, they've syndicated it to build a particular building. They're not building with their own money. Then they'll take a management fee and they'll run the whole project and then take their money at the very end of the deal after they pay back all their LPs. So I know as a buyer, the best time to buy into a building, if I'm buying in a new development, is at the very beginning or at the very end. So the very beginning is when they're trying to get enough units sold to consider their plan defected with the attorney general to make it like something that people can actually live in and close on. Or at the very end, after the developer's already paid back the bank, they've paid back all the LPs. Now it's just their profit. So they're usually a little bit more negotiable on things like that at the very end. So that's one concept. If I were to buy something that would be $600,000 to $3 million, let's say, or $5 million, depending on the property, a lot of buyers think that they're very sophisticated and that they have very sophisticated touches, but they don't really know. And that will probably also get a lot of people to disagree with me. However, I took a property, I took over a listing from another broker, and I asked the seller what was the feedback. And the feedback on this, I thought that the place was beautiful. It was renovated a little bit more Moroccan style, and it was unique, but it also just made sense. It was cool, and it was interesting, and it fit the vibe of the people that are actually buying there, not the group of people that already live there, but it's the new generation of people that are coming in to buy. So I took one look at this. I'm like, okay, all the bones are great. Everything's awesome. What can I do with this? So they said that the feedback was that everybody needed to renovate the kitchen. So I take it, I have them, and we fill in the kitchen cabinets, all the little cracks in the paint. We just fill it in with nail polish.
Oh,
And we, instead of the chandelier that was dropped down, that made it made the ceiling feel a lot lower. I just had them actually do a flush mount that spread the light across the ceiling. So then that made the light rain down on the place a little bit more versus being like a spotlight. So it felt much more open. So within a month, after the other people had it on the market for 60 days, within a month, I had many showings. I mean, we ended up in contract at the asking price, but within that time, everybody loved the kitchen. I never got feedback that it needed to get renovated because we literally touched it up with nail polish. So when you understand all you need to do is make it look pretty, make sure that there are no challenges with the material, because if they see a challenge with the material, because they have very, very detailed, if it doesn't feel heavy or if it doesn't have any weight to it, like you think about the restaurants you go to. If you go to a restaurant where it's $50 to $70 a person minimum before alcohol, that's like a normal, very nice restaurant. If you go to that restaurant, the silverware and the glassware all weigh a certain amount. You're used to it. So if you then go somewhere where their silverware and glasses are lighter in weight, it no longer feels the same quality. So if you're going to a junior, like associate's house, and they don't have nice glasses and nice silverware, you immediately associate them as less than you and they're not quite at your level. So if you're looking at getting a promotion and you're inviting your boss over, make sure you have quality silverware and quality glassware and quality plates that fit in line with their equal caliber, because now they immediately assume that you are like them, and they always want to promote the people that are like them. If they put you at less than them, now there's an issue and it's going to be harder to get that promotion. Same thing with apartments.
But how does someone who is a buyer and they stay in the home, is it would it be the same exact thing? But the age of the building, does it actually have any type of return on their investment from being an owner, like a homeowner?
Absolutely. Well, our rents are massive. So the average return, if you consider a 2% appreciation rate between renting and buying, is 5 to 7 years, depending on the building, what price you got it at. Did you get a deal or did you overpay because you saw a shiny object? And that's why working with a knowledgeable broker is very important, because a lot of people do overpay. Then it's understanding ways, and as I explained the nail polish, some people would come in and say that they needed to gut renovate the kitchen. Well, renovating the kitchen is going to be $70,000 minimum. So if I know that they can get a return on it by using paint versus $70,000, and we get them a deal as if they're going to spend $70,000 and they're able to do it for a fraction, that's how we build in their return so that they can sell it at a profit later. And you just got to start factoring that in and understand the material and what you can do.
What is the breakdown of a percentage of people that are buying in the city right now? Because New York is now the most expensive city in the U.S. to live. It like goes back and forth. It was, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, and from working with buyers and sellers, what is like the age? I know that like Gen Z, it's like 30% are buying homes. What do you see? Like, do you see more of something more popular, more trending in the city right now, that more people are buying, more families are buying, more people around a specific age, or maybe most people that I work with are in the financial district, or most people that I work with are in the entertainment business, people that are builders, they want to, renovate tear downs, or developers. And what are some of the things that the people that you're working with or you see trending in the city right now?
We're all over the map. Like, I'm doing deals for first-time buyers. Nobody's location specific anymore in the same way, because now you can use Wi-Fi in the subways. Like, we just got Wi-Fi in our subways in the last 5 years. So you start thinking about that. What we had to do when I first moved to the city from Ohio, and I lived in Brooklyn close to the Marcy projects. This is 2008. We used to stand, my subway stop was actually above ground, so it was fine. We could still use our phones, but this is like pre-iPhone. when you're going to a below ground station, which is a majority of them, we would stand outside, upstairs in that station, like on the street. And as soon as you would hear the train coming, you would sprint down the stairs, swipe your card, hang up your phone, and jump on the train as quickly as possible and hope that you made it. Sometimes you didn't. Like that was very real. Now, you don't have to do that because there's Wi-Fi in the subways. You can text, you can make phone calls, you can do email, you can still stay on that Zoom meeting that you have with whatever bank that you work with, and you can still participate in society minus that 20 minutes that you're on the train. So, or 10 minutes that you're on the train, depending on where you're going and whether it's express. So we know how long it takes us on the train and whether you're going to be writing emails or text messages, because that's still a work experience for us. So the fact that you don't have to do that sprint, that opened up Brooklyn in many different areas for investment. That opened up Queens in different areas for investment. And it changed the way that people function.
Where do you live in the city?
I'm now in the financial district.
Where were you when you first moved there?
Oh, I was in Brooklyn. In the Bushwick Bed-Stuy border.
I was born in Brighton Beach.
Oh, yeah?
Coney Island, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That area is like the new hot beach house area.
Yeah, one of my girlfriends lives in a new building.
Okay.
She loves it.
Yeah.
But it's so funny, like, watching her at the water. Now, you own?
I'm renting right now.
In the financial district? Yeah. Will you stay there when you buy?
Not sure.
And where would you go?
Not sure. So
what are some of the things that you look for as a home buyer?
So I work a lot, and what I always understand is what is my lifestyle. As a real estate agent, I base where I live based off of needing a 20-minute commute door to door, maybe 30 minutes at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And if I almost bought a townhouse in Brooklyn, and if I was going to buy a townhouse in Brooklyn, if the trains weren't working or something happened, or then there was an accident on the bridge, like anything could happen, it could take me a half hour, or if they're limited service on the weekends, which there often is, it could take me an hour and a half. So I can't necessarily jeopardize that type of a thing, because then, all right, train's not running, let me go upstairs, get in a cab. It could cost me anywhere between $30 and $100 to get to that next showing, depending on where it is. That's just not worth it to me. So I lived in Union Square, and I was there I was there for almost 6 years. And then I stayed there in my apartment during COVID. And I realized I had, my living room was 18 by 13 with a 8-foot ceiling. I'm 6 feet tall. So after a while, it starts to feel a little compressed. So I learned I needed a lot more space. So I found something with a view, because I didn't want to look at anything anymore. I needed 10-foot ceilings, because I also didn't want to touch anything. And my living room is now 26 by 15. So I can stretch out my arms. I can jump on a trampoline. I could do anything. And I'm not going to touch a wall. So in order to do that and have every subway right next to me, like I had in Union Square, this was the only place that actually made sense. So I'm still debating that townhouse. I just need to change the way that my business operates in order to actually do it.
If you lived in LA, where would you live?
I would probably live I'm pretty sure it'd be Beverly Hills or West Hollywood.
Why?
It's pretty. It's easy to get everywhere.
What's pretty about it?
You actually have trees. So granted, I haven't explored that much. Like I haven't gone to the beach. I haven't gone to a lot of different areas. This is my first time out in LA. Anytime that I've tried to come to LA, the trip's always gotten canceled for just some reason. So now being here, like it is so nice. And it's great, but I would probably live there because everything seems close enough together that I can get anywhere pretty quickly. It has all the food, it has great restaurants, it has a great social scene.
Yeah.
And it seems to have more of just an exciting environment where the energy is high. And usually anytime anybody explains, oh, it's Santa Monica, it's very beachy, you get to relax, like I'm working. I like the view. I like that the houses here are $20 to $50 million. I like all of that a lot.
Yeah.
And it just seems like a really nice environment to be.
Would you want to be above Sunset, north of Sunset, which will give you views, or would you want to be like more in the flats of Beverly Hills, which is more of like timeless piece of LA? There's so much history, like a lot of the homes that are out there built in like the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yep.
People love that.
I think it all depends on how big the lot is and how close my neighbors are. Like the hills are really nice. I looked at a few places there and I thought that they were stunning.
Yeah.
But if I had to deal with driving up and down these hills, I haven't really driven in 5 years.
Yeah.
So if everything's really tight and it seems like it's kind of a pain in the butt and it seems like I'd actually have to think while I was driving. You know, other times you get in your car, you end up somewhere, you have no idea how you got there. You just got from point A to point B, and next thing you know, you're there. You didn't die. Your car's fine. You're just there. So I think that if I lived in the hills, I wouldn't be able to do that. I saw one house that I thought was absolutely incredible.
Where was it?
I can't remember the address, but the finishes, the details, it was still a spec house, but the quality of it was amazing. And it was in the flats. It had a really nice yard, really nice pool. You couldn't see your neighbors because everything was protected by shrubbery. Yeah. And when you're in the hills, you can still see your neighbors. You might be above them, you might be below them, but you can still see them, which people watching is a spectator sport in New York. It's kind of fun. I mean, that's why the Standard Hotel is such a big deal. People just go and stand on the High Line just to watch and see what happens.
That's funny.
It's incredible. And I'd imagine that the Hollywood Hills are similar to that, but maybe not. That's why I like the flats.
Yeah. Well, what is it in your character or your personality that connects you to being in that space as a home buyer in the flats? Like, it's prestige, it's Beverly Hills? Is it because it's 90210 and you're going to have the zip code of 90210? Is it that there's a lot of old money in that area in the flats? So there's a lot of the return on your investment in the flats is a lot higher than other areas of Los Angeles because of the community that it's in. Are those certain things that you gravitate towards when you're thinking of buying?
I absolutely would, and I'm glad I'm already getting the right feeling for that.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. I think that sometimes when I find it to be and I want to hear how you do this, it's like you have a skill set. And a lot of times when people are talking to home buyers, instead of being relaxed, and maybe this is like an LA thing, instead of being relaxed and just having a conversation with the person to find out more of what they want, a lot of times with realtors, and maybe this is something more of like newer realtors, they're just like, oh, you want to spend $3 million? What do you want? And they're trying to like move really fast as opposed to just spending the time to create the connection with the other person, you know, because that one person, that one conversation is the most important conversation that you're having.
Oh, yeah.
And like even during open houses, if you're getting like a flood of people that's coming in, like it doesn't matter. That one person in front of you is the most important conversation.
Always.
What are some of the tools that you apply when you're talking to people, whether you're just building a relationship with a person or you're actually out to prospect new people, but you just want to be in a very comfortable setting, kind of like the comfortable setting that I create with the people that come onto my podcast? What are some of those things that you do?
Well, people always forget we're not transactions. There's something that Andy Frisella said really well that I thought was fascinating. And I listen to a lot of podcasts also. So
who do you like to listen to?
Andy Frisella's always great.
Okay.
I like Ed Milet. I like Lewis Howes.
Yeah, love them.
Tim Ferriss is always interesting. I love everything from Bigger Pockets. I wish they brought back Bigger Pockets Business, which would be great. Impact Theory is also really nice. So those are more my go-tos because everything I want to learn is business, health, nutrition.
Yeah.
How do I optimize everything and work a little bit smarter?
Yeah.
Just live a little smarter. How do I ask better questions? What Andy Frisella had said is that, you know, one reason that a guy is afraid of going up and talking to a beautiful woman is because he's trying to manipulate. He does not want her to know that he wants to sleep with her, but that's what he wants to know. So then he's nervous of going up to talk to her. He's like, why don't you just go up and say hi with honest intentions of actually going up to connect without trying to manipulate? And that holds true with every conversation. So if you're really focused on trying to connect with somebody, because a buyer is afraid of being a transaction, a seller is afraid that you don't care about them and that you're going to leave them and forget about them and they're just going to sit there and they're not going to know what's happening. It's like something you would hear from Brene Brown about telling a child they can't have a cookie. It's like life and death. You can't eat that one cookie. So if you are understanding what are their actual needs, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? What's their lifestyle like? Are they really trying to wow somebody else? Are they trying to wow themselves? Have they never done anything good for themselves? And this is the first thing that they're actually going to do for themselves, and they're going to plant roots. Do they feel insecure because they're running around and they need something more solid? Well, if they need something more solid, I might think they should be in the flats because it's pre-war, as you said, and I'm just learning that here. It has more detail, it has more charm, but you have also, when you look out, everything is level. There's no risk of something falling on you or your house falling. There's no risk of rocks. There's no risk of going around a corner, hitting another car because you didn't see it and they were speeding. You make life so much easier, which will get rid of their fight or flight. Plus, the craftsmanship from the pre-war buildings and that history, you don't use those materials anymore. I saw a $30 million spec house while I was here. I was like, this is terrible. Sorry.
Depends who the builder is, have to say that. I know some really good builders in LA.
100%. But just because it's a shiny new white box does not mean that it was built well.
And now going back to what you said at the beginning is that, and this isn't, people that are in the market of being buyers, it's not putting anyone down. It's not just like buyers don't know that.
Right.
They don't know that. They're like, this is pretty. Like, they just don't know that. It's not a bad thing, but I would say that even as realtors, like having like a little bits of knowledge, like I have a builder and he's like my favorite builder ever. And I was like, oh, I always ask to go to his job site. And I'm like, okay, so now this is what I'm doing. Like I go, cause I just like to know about that stuff.
Right.
And, you know, has this been something that you've always made it a priority to connect with people, to have healthy relationships? Has this been something, or was this something that you had to work on, that you had to work through yourself and then work on those parts of yourself and then see how you can apply it to other people around you?
You know, I've always loved people. What I love about humans is that we all have a story. We all have some reason that got us here. I grew up without that many friends, and I didn't understand necessarily why. So when I'm looking at a superhero always has an origin story. Something created them to get them to the place where now they felt the need to protect other people. So when you connect with somebody and you understand who they are, and then it's just fascinating, what made them to get to the point that they are today. And when you can hear them and you're interested, like I grew up when I was probably like 14 and I'm drinking scotch with like 70-year-olds. And you get to hear their stories and they're loving this because to them, they're probably 13 when they're drinking scotch with the old guys too, because back then it was probably appropriate, whereas now it's definitely not. But I'm hanging out and just talking to them. And I've also been an old soul and I just get to hear their stories. Like I started learning Russian to talk to my friend Luba's grandpa because when I was 18 and I could drink a case of beer by myself, this dude would drink me under the table and he would only speak in Russian and he was so happy all the time. I wanted to hear his stories. I wanted to understand them without a translator. So when you understand there is so much life that's been lived in that one person, wherever they are in life, whatever's brought them to this point, without judgment, they're doing the best that they can in any possible way.
Yeah.
Even if it looks like they have everything put together, they might be fighting with their spouse, their kids might hate them, but they've made choices to get them to that point. And I'm still curious about what is it? What would they have done differently? Are you glad you had kids? Are you not glad that you had, like, where does that actually sit? And when you connect with somebody and you're interested in really learning their story, I think that that's one of the most rewarding experiences that we can have as an individual and even as a society. And a lot of the times I feel like when you're, depending on like what property you have, sometimes the house has the same story.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a great way that you just you put it in that place where you're just like, I just want to, everybody has a story.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to like homeowners or even buyers or even realtors working with sellers or buyers, like, yeah, you want to get to the place where you're like, we're negotiating the deal, we're figuring out commission, we're figuring out what we're going to sell it for, where it's like, wait, hold on for a second. Like, first and foremost, like, when we're meeting people, point blank, we don't like immediately trust them. We don't immediately trust them. We may have a good feeling about something. We're like, oh, we have a good feeling about this, but we don't know in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, not that we're not going to trust these people, but to build that trust happens through communication, honesty, integrity, and just being open to really telling someone not how it is, but letting them know. And going back to even real estate as a transaction as a whole, it's like the biggest transaction that people do, and it's very overwhelming. And to build that trust allows someone to even be like, you know what? I trust that us listing at this is a good thing. And I think that that is important, and it brings so much value when you're meeting with a person. Even when you're out or you're doing a listing appointment, a lot of times there's a conversation before you are doing those listing appointments. I know that you have a team and you guys structure your team as a whole and you work with a coach. What are some of the tools that you've taken that you can either share with other realtors or just share as yourself as a growing realtor, and you've been in this business for about 10 plus years? What are some of those things that have really worked for you and continue to work for you, or some of the things you've had to change for those new skills to work for you?
I'd say that's a great question. I mean, I always believe in coaching because you can't see what you're doing right or wrong without somebody that you trust to actually point that out. And regardless of what people think about their friends, your friends are advising you based off of their limited experience. So if you go to somebody that is much more experienced in different things than you, I'm not talking about that 19-year-old life coach. It's when you go to somebody that really knows different strategies and tactics, then that's what's going to help get you there. And it also prevents you from self-sabotage, because the more money you make, the more responsibility that you have, the bigger your problems. So everybody talks about how much they want to make more money, but you also have bigger problems and challenges and more responsibility for different things. So they aren't necessarily developed emotionally to be able to process and handle that. So when you continue to work on that, then you'll continue to grow. Like my first business partner, we quit being business partners because when we finally did a certain level of business, he started going to drink and watch college football all the time. And then he wasn't functioning on Saturdays, wasn't functioning on Sundays. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not your team. You didn't play. Why are you in a bad mood? Why are you wasted? So when you realize that that's what people are like, that is a boundary that he had emotionally. Well, I want to continue to grow. So clearly that relationship is going to end. When I'm growing a team, I need to make sure that they stay around the right people, that their friends, that the restaurants that they go to, the way they're conducting themselves, the way that they dress also is elevated in the life that they want. Because then you're going to live it, you're going to breathe it, you're going to feel it, and you can experience it. Even if they don't have experience, the concept of fake it till you make it doesn't fulfill the heart. It doesn't fulfill the brain in understanding that you actually belong there. So that underlying insecurity can also lead to sabotage. So one thing that I did, like one of my first clients, he was going to be a $3 million buyer, or sorry, $3.5 million seller and a $5 million buyer. And as we're walking around, this dude was complete blowhard. But I'm just going with the flow. I'm going to listen. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And I'm going to ask questions, because then I don't have to talk. If I ask questions, then I don't need to know anything. I just need him to know things, and I'll just keep it going. And that's always a great strategy. It's a great way to also fake it till you make it, because you don't have to know that much. As long as your attention's on the other person and you can ask them questions. So as we're walking down the street, he starts pointing at this building. Is this building? Is that this building? Is that this? I'm like, sure. Yes, it is. So then that night I went home and I made flashcards of every development that had been built in New York City in the prior 10 years.
Wow, that's cool.
Every developer,
That's cool.
every building that they had done, what they sold for, what their locations were, how they were selling now versus when they originally sold, and who was the architect. I didn't have the experience, but you can study the experience. You can study history.
I love that. That's so cool. Like I mentioned this on like another episode. I do Joe Dispenza's meditations.
Okay.
And a lot of his work talks about like you can't change something from the past and expect it to become your future. You have to become your future self. So you have to like do a lot of work around like energy and healing and just the things that come together. And I'm always interested on the work that people do around themselves, because it's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, as a way of carrying a message towards others, which is why it's wellness, business, and relationships, because real estate is just there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can change it to, you know, if I was a financial advisor, we can turn it, if I was like a life coach, whatever it may be, I'm gonna use the same tools and techniques. And one of the things that I love so much is my morning routine.
Okay.
I mean, I have a whole episode on my morning routine
Really?
because it's solid. Yeah.
All right.
But I do ask all my guests before they leave, what are some of the things in their morning routine that sets them up for the day, that is a non-negotiable, that gets you started for the day?
I mean, morning routine is always a great question. Right now, mine's a train wreck because I want a morning routine so bad.
Oh my God.
I used to be, like pre-COVID, I was so good.
Oh my God.
I would be like, all right, I turn off computers at 11 p.m. I'm in bed by midnight. I'm up at 5:30. I do a quick workout.
Oh my God.
And then I meditate, and then I read 10 pages, and then I'm off. And then I'm in the office by 8 a.m. because that's when prospecting starts. It's 8 a.m. 8 until 9 is a beautiful power hour. Harass everybody before they go to work. It's great. When you mess up your night routine, your morning routine stands no chance. So now I'm trying to get back, because I basically sit at my desk until about midnight, unless I'm entertaining clients or out for fun. In which case I'm not working anyway. The night routine of having magnesium, and there's a specific magnesium that will actually cross the blood-brain barrier, so it helped my brain relax. I notice a massive difference about when I have it and when I don't. So I'll do that about an hour before I go to sleep.
What's the company?
It's on the Girlfriend Doctor website. My
Okay.
friend.
It's not Calm.
No, it's girlfrienddoctor.com, I believe.
No, but the company is not Calm.
No.
Okay.
No, or they self-brand it. I
Yeah.
don't know. But
Oh, got
my
it.
really good friend, Karina Kilcoyne, who's
Cool.
also an amazing author
Cool.
and storyteller,
Cool.
she turned me on to this. And taking that has really helped me sleep, and it helps my brain calm down. So I'll take that at least 1 hour before I go to bed and cut out blue light. So anybody that says, oh, I can take a shot of caffeine and I'll fall right asleep, which, yeah, you can, like borderline narcoleptic. I can watch TV, and then I always fall asleep watching TV. Well, the blue light, and there's always studies like this, especially if you follow Dr. Daniel Blatman or anybody else, they'll say that the blue light will actually stimulate your brain for 2 hours. So if you cut out blue light, computer screen, which I'm terrible at these days, or TV, that will keep your brain stimulated for 2 hours. So if I'm going to bed at midnight, I'm not actually going to have a chance at sleeping until 2. So then if I'm going to get up at 6, I got maybe 4 hours of sleep.
Wow.
But if the ideal sleep window is actually 12 until 2, based off of moon cycles and gravity and whatever that is, I've actually ruined my entire sleep window. So now my sleep, even though my Whoop says that I got 6 hours of sleep, all of it was terrible because I have not recovered at all. But if you cut it out 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed, or you put on blue light glasses, it changes your entire sleep and morning.
Yeah.
Then when you get up in the morning, I'm starting to do like morning walks. I take myself for a nice walk. I go get a coffee, and seeing the sun in the morning has actually been really nice.
Yeah.
That's brand new.
Yeah.
Meditating for 10 minutes and then starting my day.
That's awesome. I mean, you'll have to call me. I'll tell you everything.
Deal.
Can you leave the listeners with one suggestion or piece of advice they can apply to their daily routine, their business, and/or relationship?
I would say one of the most important things that any person can do at any age, and especially as we get older, the most important thing to do is try something new every single year. And it's not like a one-day experience. It's actually pick up a hobby or a habit, something. You don't have to keep it the whole year. It could be 3 months. It could be 6 months. The goal of this, let's say you learn Spanish or Russian or piano, or you feel like picking up the recorder again because you didn't annoy yourself enough the first time that you played it. If you're learning that new life skill, as we get older, we're too afraid of trying new things. We get stuck in our habits because we're used to being good at something. It's been a long time since we've been terrible at something. And that means death, destruction, I'm going to get made fun of. Everybody's going to hate me and laugh at me, and I'm going to die. When you try something new, you realize how terrible you are when you first start it, but how proficient and actually good you are after 3 months of doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you.
Like, you need to do that. And then if you can continue it for 6 months, and then you probably might fall off the wagon. You only have so much time for hobbies and for everything else. You're allowed to hate it. Like, you don't have to keep reading that book. Get rid of the guilt. Just get rid of the book. It's probably terrible. You finished everything in the first 2 pages because it should have been a summary, not an actual 200-page book. So get rid of it. But when you pick up something new and you build that habit and you build proficiency, you realize how quickly you go from being terrible to decent. And then starting new things, starting a new job, quitting when you're 50 to start a new company is not that scary.
Yeah. I think it's also like can help boost your confidence.
Big time.
Yeah. What are 3 qualities peers of yours would say about you?
3 qualities peers would say about me. I'm very caring, very hardworking, and always positive. There's always a positive spin on everything.
That's cool. Then Daniel, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my Instagram at Daniel Blatman. It's Batman with an L, like the Jewish version, and email and the company website.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for listening. You can follow me at Jessica J. Fury. You can follow the podcast. We are now on YouTube, so follow the YouTube at Dumb Girl Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Daniel, thank you for being here. Talk to you guys soon.